Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech protected.
Welcome back, everybody. Hi, Anina Hansen, welcoming you to Voices of Monadnock, our podcast / YouTube, where we talk with different people who live around the area. Our show is organized by the Greater Monadnock Collaborative Chamber of Commerce and Monadnock Family Services Trauma Responsive Monadnock program, which is where I work. Gosh, that was a lot of words. I kind of lost track of where I even was. But anyway, I am here today with Mike Kowalczyk and Bob Meissner, and they are going to be talking about bicycles, the rail trail.
Yes.
So welcome, guys. It's great to have you both. Thanks for being here.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
So before we dig into all things Monadnock Rail Trail related, you want to go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourselves as far as Monadnock residents for a long time, or are you imports? How did you end up here in this area, both of you?
So I came here in 2001 from upstate New York.
Okay.
It was a job with Markham, then Markham, now Markham Homage.
Yeah.
And one of the criteria for moving was bike to work. And this area offered that. And
You wanted to be able to bike to work.
every day.
And that's part of why you accepted the job here in
Right.
Monadnock. Wow,
So
that sells it right there. Huh?
Right. So we built a house in West Keene, which the Cheshire Rail Trail's behind the property. And I used that for 20 years, biking to work.
So you practice what you preach, is what you're saying.
Right, exactly. And I just think it's a huge benefit. It helped me. It was very healthy. It reduces stress. It got me time, just downtime, which was great. Don't have to worry about traffic.
Did you bike
I
in the
really enjoyed
winter?
it. My goal was to get to Christmas and to start March 1st, and I did that most years. So there's only a couple months where I was not biking.
That seems like a very reasonable compromise.
Yes.
We don't expect anybody to bike in deep winter. Although
Well,
I imagine there's a few people who do, but...
The biking community would say there's no bad weather, there's only bad clothing.
Ah,
So,
okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. How about you, Bob?
Well, I beat Mike here by only a year. I came in 2000 to set up a franchise in recruiting for the outdoor powered equipment industry, a real niche, as it were, on Main Street. And
In Keene.
In Keene, Main
Okay.
Street in Keene, excuse me,
Gotcha.
thank you. And we were raising our son out of Keene, and both of us were very outdoors. So we got on the trails from just off of Court Street all the time on our bikes or on rollerblades, and there were Jonathan Daniels Trail was nearby, and other accesses to the rail trail network, which we adored. Then when we moved to Dublin, your hometown, there really wasn't the same, although I was able to ride my bike from Dublin down to Harrisville, across Scatutucky, and then back up 101.
Okay.
So I fell in love. I already loved biking, and that was a good route. There was nothing really in Marlborough for us when we moved to Marlborough. And then finally, now in Jaffrey, where we live, the last 5 years, I get on the Jaffrey Ringe Trail from Jaffrey to the state line. And that works out very, very well for me. And my son, now in Rhode Island, where there are tremendous rail trails, it's very highly networked, he'll come up here and we'll ride the trail together. That's pretty much my story.
Okay, so you both have an affinity for biking that led to your support of this Monadnock Rail Trail program. So tell me, what is it? What is the trail system's current status, and then what you are working to have it become?
Sure. So the current network is made up of 5 rail trails. So the Cheshire Rail Trail runs from the New Hampshire-Massachusetts border down near Winchendon, all the way through Fitzwilliam, Troy, Marlborough, Swansea, Keene, Surrey, Westmoreland, and Walpole, and connects with, or can connect with, Bellows Falls up in Vermont. So that trail is about 43 miles in length. Then the Ashwelot Trail, which starts in Keene here at Emerald Street, goes southwest through Swansea, Winchester, and Hinsdale, and ends up at the Connecticut River. And then there's a short 8-mile trail called the Fort Hill that runs along the Connecticut River north back to Brattleboro. And there is a way to connect with Brattleboro, which we can get into in a second here. And then on the east side, where Bob lives, there's what's called the Monadnock Trail, which again comes out of Winchendon going north through Ringe and Jaffrey, and then it connects with Peterborough, or can connect with Peterborough, and actually runs all the way up to Hillsborough. So that's the scope of our work, is we want to be able to cover all of those rail trails. As far as condition, it varies. Like in Keene, Keene owns a couple miles. It's all paved, very nice. There's some places where it's a very nice hard pack surface, and there's some places where it's really hard to get through and it's really rough. So our goal is to make the trails, have it be at a quality where my tagline is a 6-year-old could ride a bike on it.
Okay.
And be able to do that through the whole region and connect with our neighbors, Winchendon, Brattleboro, and Bellows Falls.
All right. And I'm gathering really realistically speaking, there's some economic benefit if we do this. Like I know over in eastern Monadnock, there's gaps between the trails. There's a nice section, and then there's no man's land, and then there's another nice section. And the goal of creating nice section all the way through is in part to be attracting more people. It would promote tourism in the area. What are you working towards with that?
Well, very well said. And I think Mike's done some of the economics of it, but so has the GMC, Greater Monadnock Collaborative, because they recognize the economic engine that rail trails and those people that might be coming from Massachusetts or the other surrounding states and then spend their money here would be able to do. Have you monetized that, Mike?
Well, what I've done is I've looked at what other states have done. Like New York recently completed their Erie Canal Trail, which runs from Buffalo to Albany.
Wow.
And there's the what's called the Greater Allegheny Passes, which runs from Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C.
Wow.
Right, and if you look at all their infographics, all of them say, "Wow, this generates hundreds of millions of dollars in economic value. We get millions of visitors." Every one of them got their infograph that does the same
Right.
thing. And someday I want to create my own infograph of what it does for us. And I think our benefit is we're not far from Boston.
Right.
There's actually a way in the future to bike from Boston up to here.
That would be
So
amazing.
Massachusetts is working on a section, and there is a way to connect. But people could come up from New York. They could take the train out of Grand Central. There's a train stop in Brattleboro. Get off with your bike and bike the Monadnock region, right? So we could attract people from the whole eastern corridor,
Yeah.
I think, pretty easily. New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine were big skiing states in the winter and snowmobile states. I think we can be big bike states too once we get the network
Imagine.
completed.
That's a great vision.
Yeah.
Okay, so what stands in the way?
Well, effort, funding, getting people
Volunteers.
to help, volunteers. So the way it's structured in New Hampshire, all the rail trails in our region's owned by the New Hampshire Department of Transportation. They're the property owner, except for a couple miles in Keene. Keene bought a couple miles, I think like 20, 25 years ago. So the DOT is the owner. The Bureau of Trails is the manager. And the Bureau of Trails staff is 15 people to cover the whole state.
Okay,
So they have a small staff and they have hundreds and hundreds of miles of trail.
right.
So they rely a lot on volunteers, friends groups, snowmobile clubs to do the groundwork, right? And when I started the collaborative, what I saw was a lot of these groups working independently and not coming together. And one of the things we do is just try to bring all groups of the same interests together
Yeah.
to work on a section. So if we do a project, like we got a project coming next year in Marlboro to do the 2.8 miles there, it involves Cheshire County, our collaborative, the City of Marlboro, and the Snowmobile Club.
Okay. Okay.
So that's kind of what it takes to kind of pull everybody together to make it
And what
happen.
is that project? Do you do things like trail maintenance or?
In this case, that section of trail is pretty rough. It needs a lot of work. It's been neglected for decades. So it will be removing trees. So trees have encroached onto the trail. It will be cleaning out all the drainage ditches. So drainage ditches are clogged, therefore water gets onto the trail and washes it away. So get all those drainage ditches cleared, culverts cleared, and then finally when that's all done, lay down a hard packed surface so the 6-year-old can ride a bike on it.
That is a hardcore project. That's not just a Saturday afternoon with a couple volunteers and you're
Correct.
done. That's a big undertaking.
Exactly right. This is not shovels and rakes. It's
Right.
excavators and front loaders
And a budget.
and a budget, right?
Yeah. Okay.
I could add that in parallel, that on the Monadnock Trail, you wisely pointed out that in Jaffrey, the trail really stops on Webster Street. And going north, there's another almost 2 miles that need, similarly, they need part of the trail to be completely rehabbed because it's been abandoned. There's a missing bridge that needs to be repaired or created, excuse me. And then we need to redeck. This is where snowmobilers, their clubs and so on come in over 2 trestles. So you can see there are different needs, different, let's call it, different issues that have to be addressed. And then you get to Route 202, and then there's no ownership per se from the state after that until you almost at Peterborough because it's in private hands. So we have to figure out a different route to get to Peterborough, and then for Peterborough North, there are other issues we won't go through right now, but that would be a parallel that may take several years to accomplish the 3 or 4 stages that would get us just to where we have a hard stop at 202. Is that fair to say, Mike?
Yep. And then we're working with Peterborough Department of Public Works on how to get from that point Bob's talking about up to the Peterborough Trail. So in Peterborough, it's actually pretty good. They've been taking care of their section really well through Peterborough, all the way to the Peterborough-Hancock town line. But there is this missing section between Peterborough and Jaffrey.
Yeah.
And we're in discussions on some ideas on how to make that link. And again, the Snowmobile Club, they would like to run that, and they could. So they're involved too, and they know a lot of people with private property because they're all snowmobilers. So they think they might be able to get access to some pieces of property. That's why it's really a collaborative event, right? I mean, everybody
Right.
brings something to the table.
It's such a
that can help.
win-win. You want the same thing. So
Right, exactly.
that's interesting. I wasn't even aware of that.
Yeah.
So that has me thinking, the lens I look at things through is, at Trauma Responsive Manadnock, we're working to promote positive childhood experiences for youth and prevent adverse childhood experiences. And of course, everybody knows the benefits of physical activity, being outside, all of that. So there's a lot how this fits together with helping kids be healthier, and not just kids, of course, people in general, but what are the opportunities that you're aware of that exist now and or that you're planning for utilizing these trails, especially once your goals are fulfilled and there's all this clean rideable network? How do you hope that's going to translate into getting more community involvement, not just bringing in the tourists, but the people who are right here who can benefit from this?
Yeah, interesting you say that because just prior to this, Bob and I were talking about a bike event, try to organize a bike event. And there's several organizations that I am involved with in one way or another that are all talking a bike event, but they're all talking a bike event individually. And Bob and I were just chatting like, okay, we need to get them all together in a room together because holding an event is a lot of work, takes a lot of effort. And I think for one group to do it is probably too much, but for 5 or 6 groups to do it, now it's really possible. So and a bike event can be a way to promote the trails and use the trails as the event. That's one thing that could be done. I think the schools, right, through the schools, try to promote it. I know in Troy, there's a school that backs up to the rail trail in Troy.
Okay.
So they could actually use that as maybe a way to get to school, is another thought. So those are two things that are immediately come to mind.
Okay.
I would add that, that's great, Mike. I would add that there are other components of this outreach, yes, for children. We look at the rail trail as anyone can use it trail. So when I ride my bike, I'll see equestrians on the trail,
Okay.
which is just awesome. There's protocols for that, which is kind of interesting. I'm going to share that thought in a moment. And then you'll see people pushing a pram or stroller, others just simply walking their dogs, and then, of course, people on their bikes. So, and then in the winter, totally different world,
Right.
which is quite exciting. Where I see us injecting, let's say, ourselves in a healthy way would include speaking to schools about bike safety, for example,
Okay.
so that there's a higher awareness of everything from helmets to the protocol I mentioned, and get on the trails. Form a bike club for your class, for your school, etc., and get on there. And then at the other end is those who cannot use the trail anymore because of physical limitations. So there are now bikes, e-bikes, that have Mike can help me with this, like a basket in front where one or two individuals, grown-ups or children, can sit while the driver, a la an Asian rickshaw sort of thing, would navigate them to experience what you are hoping will happen. Okay. Be outdoors, feel the breeze, be aware of what's around you, but not worried about a fall or
Right.
etc. So we're just aware of this. We're not doing it yet, but some of the local bike shops are also aware of this, and the manufacturers of the machines that would be utilized. And then, of course, as Mike said, we have to organize ourselves to be able to reach to rehab centers and daycare centers for adults and so on to make it come alive.
That sounds wonderful. I didn't even know that a device like that existed.
Oh, so cool.
It makes so much sense. It's such a good idea because just the physical health benefits and the mental health benefits just of being outside, but also, when you have a task, if you're pedaling, there's that one part of your brain that is engaged in that task. But when you're just doing something like that outside, under the trees, the rest of the brain is free to relax in a way that we don't get a lot of access to in our busy, loud lives nowadays. So
that's a very savvy comment, by the way. Really savvy comment.
Well, there's multiple aspects to the health benefit, but then also what you're saying is we can pass that benefit on to people who don't have those mobility capabilities themselves.
Right.
Which sounds like just such a huge win-win.
It is.
It's exciting.
Yep. Yeah, we recently learned about this rickshaw type program. There's a group up in Lebanon, New Hampshire, doing this. And there's a whole program around it. The bikes, they call them pilots, people that ride the bikes.
Okay.
And then they have the clients that basically just go for the ride. And usually it's the elderly that are immobile or can't move around too much anymore.
Right.
And in our area, I can think of 3 places right along the trail: Langdon Place in West Keene. What is it now called? The American House on Water Street, I think. And there's Page Homestead in Swansea. They're all right near the rail trail.
Interesting.
So they could easily have programs, or the program could accommodate those 3 facilities very easily because they're right on the rail trail.
Cool idea.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Bob.
Well, this might be a good place to mention that in order to acquire one of these rickshaws could lead to one of the fundamental necessities that our group, our collaborative, needs, and that is grants to be able to afford these machines, which are sophisticated actually, and relatively expensive. So I'm bringing that up because I hope Mike will share more about that. But that's where, in order to make it become a reality, that we're going to need that additional support, whether it be grants or donations or corporate sponsorships.
All right, you want to speak to that, Mike?
Yeah, so grants, funding, that's like what all starts there, right? You need the money to do the work. We've been fortunate, we've partnered with Cheshire County, and the grant manager for Cheshire County is helping us. She's wonderful at this stuff.
Yeah.
And she's been able to secure several grants for us, which is great. And we're doing federal, so US DOT has several programs of grants for things like this. And then what they do is they allocate money to every state, and then each state manages their own allocation. So one grant's called the Recreational Trails Program Grant through the Trails Bureau, and we've been awarded several of those over the last few years to help fix the trails, but also private grants. We also look at private funding. As you know, a lot of corporations, they have their charitable giving section of their company, and we write grants to those, and we've gotten several of those as well. So the process is pick a project. Okay, what do we think it's going to cost? How do we think we want to fund it? Get the grants written. If you get awarded, then start to do it. Then you got to report it, and so it's a lot of work and quite a process.
Yeah.
But we're having success. We're kind of piecing the puzzle together here.
That's so wonderful. Yeah. So we're about out of time, so let's just wrap it up with, I'd like to bring it back for both of you to what it is about this, or just in general, that you find special about the Monadnock region. I mean, there's obviously, this is our little corner here, and you're working on the rail trail project, but tell me about your experience of doing this sort of thing in the Monadnock region and how that's been positive.
So, like I said, we moved here 20 years ago. Really love it. We love the small town America type of atmosphere. We love the outdoors. My wife walks every day with a friend. In fact, they did all the streets in Keene a couple of years ago. That was their goal.
Nice.
And like I said before, I've been biking pretty much my whole life, and there's lots, not just the rail trails, but there's a lot of biking opportunities in the region. But yet we're not far from the hustle and bustle if we want to do that, right? I mean, Boston's not that far away. The seacoast isn't that far away. Even New York City's within reach. So we like being small town America, but close if we want to, go do the big city thing. And to me, the Manadnock region just fits that perfectly.
It really excels. Absolutely, yeah. I agree. Bob?
Well, for me, it's and I echo everything Mike says. I think the world of this man. It's the whole idea of knitting, these trails together. And by doing so, what sings to my heart is the collaboration with so many disparate organizations. Now, you might say that the GMC, Greater Monadnock Collaborative, is the center of this, but it's much, much bigger than that. And when you think of Healthy Leadership Council for Healthy Monadnock, or Monadnock Outdoors, or the Cheshire County Conservation District as examples, they all are looking to do very similar things in collaboration. That's what warms my heart.
Nice. We really have some great things going on in this
absolutely.
area, right?
Yep.
Okay, I think we'll wrap it up there. I'm so grateful to you both for coming and educating our listeners, but also myself. This is good to know. I love that resources like this exist, are being developed. The rail trails themselves, and then the groups that exist around those trails. It's just a really nice example of the sorts of things that are available here, and the sorts of things people are invested in here, because it speaks also to our community, that people care about this sort of thing. I've heard the word collaboration out of both of your mouths multiple times today, and that's a beautiful example of how it is in Monadnock. A lot of working together. We come together and create results like this
Right,
together
right.
that wouldn't have happened.
Yep.
Well, we need to flip this and thank you.
Yes.
Because one of the major things that is major components is educating people that these resources are available for such a wide spectrum of potential users. And many people just don't know it's there. So you're doing a great service to the community through what you're doing today.
Yeah, so thank you for all you do to help us get the word out.
It sounds to me like we're all awesome.
We're all collaborating.
We all are.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Mike and Bob, thank you so much.
You're
for being
very
here
welcome. Sure
Totally
thing.
welcome.
Yeah.
Blessings.
Where's the applause part?
Today. We can applaud for us.